We are live and we are here to debate. I have some brave souls in a back panel getting ready to get destroyed today. Sorry, guys, I'm a huge trash talker, but we're here to have fun. You've seen the title. Will the US dollar crash? Can it crash? This is the topic of the debate today, and this is what we're here to discuss. So, without further ado, we're going to talk about all that, but we're going to do that coming up after the intro.
Hey, yeah. It's all about wealth engineering. Might be something that you're not used to. It's okay, cause I'm here to introduce you to concepts. Time to grow and make big moves. All about crypto, come see. Stocks and business, yes indeed. Got the info that you need. Hosted by my homie JC. Hey, yeah. Wealth engineering. Stacking and stacking it up. It's time to generate wealth. Till you living like Scrooge McDuck. Hey, wealth engineering. It's time to show you the game. Till you living like Richie Rich. Till you ballin' like Bruce Wayne. Hey, you ain't gotta be an expert, no problem. It don't really matter where you at, just start it. It'll take time, hard work, and
What's up? What's up, guys? This is JC, and welcome to the Wealth Engineering Podcast. If you're new here, my name is JC, and I love creating content to motivate millennials in increasing their net worth, retire early, and build generational wealth. So, no, how do we do that? We do that through stocks, real estate, business, and cryptocurrencies. But one of the foundation of the economy is the US dollars. And when many times when we want to buy those assets, we're going to need US dollars or Canadian dollars, regardless of which currency you have. All of them are paired to the US dollars. So your US dollars right now is the world currency, and it is very important to the stability of the economy to understand when we are in boost and bust cycles. So as an investor, regardless where you are in the world, even if you only focus on forex or cryptocurrencies, you need to understand the US dollars a little bit. So if the US dollars is in danger, then that's something you need to know as well. Now, some people believe that we're fine. The US dollars will always be some sort of strength. So why not create a debate about it, a friendly debate? And this is what we're here to discuss. But before we start and I introduce the panel with you guys, those brave souls that wanted to join me on this panel today, and shout out to them, we'll introduce. I wanted to give a quick shout out to my new subscribers. Thank you for your support. But more importantly, shout out to my OGs, my wealth engineers in the chat. What's up, J Bones? Thank you. Thank you for your support, for always coming here and showing support. Hope you enjoyed the show today. Wealth engineering, absolutely. Looking fresh, white logo on the left. Yeah, you gotta represent. You gotta represent. And hey, how are you doing? The Russian Troll Network. Dollar is strong. So hey, I'm going to need you guys because you are going to decide who is the winner of this debate. All right. So we got Team Dollar here. Team Dollar is strong. So I hope you stay and watch the debate because we're going to need you guys. And I actually invited the panel as well to bring their friends, families, whoever wants to support them, so that we can give them a chance, right? We can give them a fair chance. All right. So hey, I know you like forex, Melissa. So hopefully you stay around and watch this debate, and let us know who will win this debate. And we're going to need you guys to participate as well in the chart because I don't want it to be one-sided. I want everyone to be involved. So I'm a newbie with the tech tips. Great, great. And this is a great debate as well for newbies because you're going to hear all sides where everyone is coming from, and we can learn together, right? So without further ado, let me introduce to you guys the first guest on the panel today, Mr. Sam Sia. How you doing, sir?
I'm well. How you doing? Can you hear me?
Yes, very good, very good. So, would you like to talk and tell us a little bit about who you are, what you do, and we can go from there?
How you doing? How you doing, family? My name is Simsia. I'm I'm an engineer by trade, but I'd say that I'm always been obsessed with finances and understanding money. And this is a great topic for us to debate tonight because I'm a big believer in that the U.S. dollar cannot be taken down.
Really?
The,
All
wor-
right, all right.
the world cannot afford for that to happen. So,
Really? Eh? Well,
but
I agree with you there. The world cannot afford for that to happen, but hey, it doesn't mean it can be taken down. But man, I'm so excited, guys. If you guys don't know, I'm a debater by nature. I'm just whenever I see debate, especially when I can win, I I'm all over it. Well, hey, thank you very much for coming on the panel and talk about all this. All right. So, without further ado, let me introduce to you guys the second guest we have to discuss about this, Mr. Perry Unlikely. You probably seen him before on the channel a couple times. We had a collab together. So, can you tell us a little bit about yourself, Mr. Perry?
Absolutely. Thanks for having me as well.
Of course.
So I actually have a YouTube channel, Perry Unlikely, where I focus on cryptocurrency, real estate as well. But just with the way things have been going over the past really year and a half now, I've been more focused on cryptocurrency and it's always changing. So, but also I'm just in investing in general and kind of just forging my own path, doing things a different way. So.
Absolutely, absolutely. And are you team? Are you for? Like, are you supporting Seam or are you supporting me in this debate? Like,
I'm,
which side
I'm
are you on?
I'm supporting Sim.
Ooh,
Yeah,
ooh.
I'm supporting them. Um yeah, we got a lot to get into. The dollar, the dollar is a strong force. Even when it's weak, it's a strong force.
Even when it's weak, it is a strong force.
Yes.
This is very deep. This is a deep statement right here. And man, we're gonna get into it. But I see the intentional millionaire in the chat. We were talking about this on the side. From my perspective, I think the intentional millionaire might be on my side. But hey, I'll send the link just in case he wants to come in.
All
But
right. Good
honestly,
deal.
I'm fine with taking both of you guys.
man, Tim, if Tim gets on, then we definitely know you're gonna be taken down on your own platform.
Right.
Oh, really? Really? All right. Well, I sent him the link. I sent him the link. So the link is only for the intentional millionaire in the chat if he wants to join in. You also have the link on your email as well. I think I sent you an email yesterday, but yeah, only for Tim. But let's get on to it, guys. Oh, right there, right there. I'll give him some time just to make sure he's ready. But man, I'm so excited about this, guys. If you guys taken the personality test, there is a personality test called the Myers Briggs
Hmm.
16 personality test. My personality is called the debater, right? I'm the same type of guy like the Joker from Batman series.
All
So
right.
I love debate, guys. I love
Yeah, I
debate.
do too. I do
All right,
too.
all right. So let me make sure that give me a thumbs up if you're ready, Tim. Perfect, perfect. All right, let me introduce the fourth person on the panel who joined this to
How's it going,
join
gentlemen?
this
How's it
debate.
How's it
How
going?
going?
he's
How's
doing?
it going?
What's up? What's up? How's it going?
Not much.
Not
We
much.
got
So,
Sim, we got Parallel Lightly, and Wealth Engineering. So we
all
got
This
a
right,
is
all
full
right.
house today.
this is
Full house,
not
full
this
house.
is
Now,
this is not
tell me a
fair.
little bit. Tell us a little bit about yourself for those who don't know who you are, and then which team are you? Are you team you think U.S. dollar will crash, or you think U.S. dollar will survive?
So let me first let me introduce myself. I am the intentional millionaire. You can call me Tim for short. I have $1 million portfolio, and what I'm doing on my channel is teaching men how to coach, train, and mentor men at how they can do the same.
Hmm.
So with that being said, I want to first apologize, Wealth Engineering, because I thought you was talking about just the market as a whole, not actually the dollar.
Oh, okay, okay.
So with that being said, I don't think the actual dollar is going to crash because it's just going to get devalued, but it's going to still be around. It's not going anywhere.
Okay, okay.
Yeah.
Well, you know what? I hear that, and I hear it as kind of like being in the middle, but more towards where I think about it. Because, and I guess we can start right away on the channel. My next round would be so before we get into it, I want to give the rules. Make sure that we're all on the same page here. We got to keep it friendly, guys. No need to go personal. It's friendly debate. Hopefully, we can still shake hand, give hugs, and invite us to dinner or your wedding if you guys wants to invite me. I've heard this debate. Nothing personal, just business, right? And we're gonna keep it fun, right? We're gonna try to address everyone's like whenever it's your turn, you speak and try not to interrupt anyone's. If you have some things you want to address, wait your turn or write it down something, and then so that you can remember. And then we can and if you can share any support document you want, right? If you have a website, if you have a YouTube video or something you want to allude to, let me know. We can share it on your screen. And with that said, let's get going. So, um, I want to go around and I want to me my statement is I believe the US dollar will crash. I believe the US dollar will lose its status as the world currency. But I believe after all that happens, eventually we won't hear about the US dollar anymore. I think, regardless of how powerful it is now, eventually we're just going to forget what US dollar is, and we're going to have to watch the history books to know that there was a US dollar at some point. Now, this is where I'm coming from it. And my question to you guys, and I'll start from Simsia, is basically why do you feel like you're going to win this debate, and what is your clear statement on that? Like,
Yeah. So as far as the dollar itself, we really have to really understand where the decision makers reside. So the decision makers of the entire world reside primarily in America. I'm talking about the who's of who's, the people who own the most states in almost every single company in the world. So the dollar is just used as a measurement tool in order to really figure out where we stand as in the world. But I don't see it going anywhere no time soon. There's just not enough room for anyone else to take the first place position, even if it means that they put laws in place that keep other currencies from being like at the front. I don't really foresee them allowing someone else to be the leader as far as a world class standard.
um, I agree. Look, that's your point right here. But let me pass the along to Simsi. Sorry, no, some not Simsi. Very unlikely as well. What would be your opening statement when it comes to your argument on why you believe the US dollar won't go anywhere, and yes, why you think you're going to win? You can trash talk if you want.
Yeah, so specifically, I do want to clarify this. So I won't say that it will never happen. Just the same way I say, the Roman Empire, if it came to an end, well, any empire can. But in my lifetime, I don't, or even my children's lifetime, I don't know that I foresee it. And really, the reason is we have smaller examples, specifically in America for sure, but even other nations of where, we've had certain sectors of the financial world that we couldn't afford for them to fail. Well, that's really where we're at with the dollar. And if you think about who's poised to take that next spot, I think a lot of people would say it's China. Well, China's, because of their position and because America's debt, although they would be poised to take it, they're in a vulnerable position because of that debt as well. So it's just a very complex thing. For it to happen would take a whole lot. So that's my main reason. So, but I definitely have some points that I'll scorch you with tonight.
Ooh, the debate is getting interesting. Hey, man, so far you guys are doing a great job. I like your points, man. I like your points. All right, well, I'm going to pass the torch to Mr. Tim, the intentional millionaire, and as a millionaire, so his words have more like strength. Like he knows the game in some level. So I'm very happy, guys. I think the battle is so fair now, 3 against 1. Like, all right, Mr. The Intentional Millionaire. In
Well,
your
I have
opinion,
two.
what are your opening statement,
I
and
have
why do you
two.
think you're going to win based on your position?
Well, two major reasons. The first thing is when you think about the history of the American system, the economic system as a whole, for it to change and the dollar to become devalued, you got to think about that means you're gonna have to tear down the whole system and start it from scratch. And one of those things is the American government is never good at doing anything. So the first reason you have to tear the system down to start it afresh because the American economy is built around the dollar. But then on top of that, the American system is the slowest system in implementation anything new. So when you think about that in itself, even if that do happen, let's just say if the dollar value goes to nothing, it's going to be maybe 500 years before they actually implement something. Okay, so with those two things alone, just knowing how America operate, and then you just got to think about crypto as a whole. The reason why we are the last as it come to crypto, we kind of behind the eight ball because America was so slow to start implementing their regulatory process. And now you got to think of the layers on that. So now not only are they always slow, but then you got a pandemic going on, and on top of that, it just gonna make the process even slower. So now that 500 years just went to 1,000 years. So that's my case.
Hey, well, shout out to you for coming out and bring this. And you already have some fans already on the chat, man. They say that they agree with you on that. So far, I guess the chat is leaning towards you guys, right? So hopefully, if I'm good enough, I can try to steer the chat a little bit towards me. But I saw a question. Was it Peter Investor M? Shout out to you. Describe the US dollar fiat or the US dollar as a stable coin or the US dollar as a commodity like petrodollar. Well, I guess the petrodollar part will come in my statement actually. But very quickly, fiat currency is any currency that is not backed by anything other than what government says it is, right? It's legal tender. So it's whatever the justice system, the government says it is, that's what it's backed by. Whereas in the past, we used to have currency that was backed either by gold, by silver. So there was a metal, physical, precious asset backing the currency. It's just a receipt for that asset, right? So that's the difference between currency in the past and currency we have now, which is called fiat. Let it be done. I think it's Latin for let it be done. All right. Stablecoin is basically a crypto version of a fiat currency, and what they do is we'll use Coinbase as example. Coinbase is a company. They create a stable coin called USDC. And what they're doing is for every USDC you have, they're supposed to give you $1 US. All right. If you have one USDC, it's supposed to be equal to $1 US. But hey, maybe they might want to print more USDC than they have US dollars in the bank, right? So you never know with all that. But that's where the dangers of currency comes in, is because either the government might want to print more than they have, or the companies might decide to print more than they have. And we have this issue going on with Tether. Tether is the stable coin called USDT. And there is a lot of fishy things going on because they don't want to be audited. And when they want to be audited, so you may have more Tether in circulation as opposed to what they have in their vaults. So yes, that's where the stable coin comes in. It's still a currency. I guess it's backed by the fiat dollar. All right. And the petrodollar, that's going to lead to my opening statement.
I already know what he's cooking with.
So, and I ask you guys a question. I say, why do you think you're going to win this debate? And I think I'm going to win this debate because the US dollars, and I can show you guys the pattern, but the US dollar is slowly losing its hold on the world as the world currency. And the reason why the US had this hold for 50 years, it's because of the petrodollar. Now, in 1971, the US dollar, the US government had to remove any tie from the US dollar with gold. All right, that's the day it became a fiat currency. And then they had to prove to the world that, hey, it was valuable, right? So instead of tying it to gold, they tied it to the petrol, to oil, to the petrol dollar, and that was I'm going to dive deeper into that, and that's where the word petrodollar comes in. It's because now oil is basically we call it in French, matière première, but it's basically the first resources that any country needs just to have basic things, right? Electricity, gas, communication, transport, all that can tie itself back to oil, right? It's the first resource that the nation needs to maintain itself. So if you have to spend oil and to purchase oil, you have to use US dollar, then that gives US dollar the power to own the world in many ways. But what if you remove that tie from the petrodollar and now the US dollar is not backed by anything, right? So can it still be the world currency? I believe not. And I'm going to show you that this has already been happening. It's been happening in the last 20 years. And now we're at a threshing point where it's about to blow up, right? And also the second reason why I think I'm going to win this debate, it's not just where the US dollar derive its value, it's also how many US dollar is in circulation. Now, if on one hand you have the petrodollar ties being removed, and the other hand you have the government printing the US dollar on oblivion, right? We have last year we had 40% of the entire US dollar currency printed just in 1 year, right? 40% of all the US dollars in circulation. It took 100 and 200 years to get to that point, and then 40% of that was printed in 1 year. So these are clear signs that the end is near, and based on history, whenever we reach that point, I believe. You look very young, since very unlikely. I don't know if I think you're probably in the early 30s or late 20s. But
Thank you. 37.
Before you retire, you're definitely going to see the US dollar crashing. All right, crashing.
Wow.
So you calling me the old head? So you saying I'm gonna be gone before it crash?
Yeah, absolutely not. I think it's going to happen
Well, I'm gonna
within this decade.
Well, when I go, then wealth engineer, I'm gonna tell him put some fiat money on my casket.
Oh man, that's funny, man. But yeah, there was a time people used to do that in Rome, right? But they did that when the gold, right? They put gold and silver, right? They did that when it was worth something, because you want to make sure you pay to the afterworld. You want to make sure you pay your route, right? So you don't want to give something that is losing its value. So you might not want to choose fiat. You might want to choose crypto, like Avalanche or something. All right, all right. Well, hey, now that we hear everyone here, let's start with the first question I had ready for you. Now let me see where we are here. Now here's my first question for you guys. I don't. You may or may not know this fact, but it's a fact. Other than before the US dollar, there were many other currencies, fiat currencies, right? There were many currencies since the time of Rome until now, and other than the US dollars, all of the other currencies crashed, and all of the other currencies were being stopped circulating in the market, right? So basically, we can say there is 100% of currencies are being removed out of the economy, and 100% of currency crash at some point. So I guess my first question will go to Simsia. It's basically, if 100% of currency fell, what is the one thing that makes the US dollar different, that it will be the exception to the rule?
Well, I believe that more than anything, there'll be a pivot. There'll be a pivot from a fiat standard to more of a digital standard that still accompanies a lot of the same system. You know, I feel like I understand your position about the inflationary impact of the money being printed within the last year or so, even within the last 20 years. I understand that. It's just that I don't think that from a posture position that America would allow anything else to happen besides them being the standard. You know, just because they're regarded. Because if we're really being honest, right? If we're really being honest, we would say that China is actually wealthier than America. If we're really being honest, but the way the narrative is told is that America is still the standard. You know what I mean? So I'm not arguing completely with what you're saying, but what I'm saying is the optics is what I'm really referring to. It's about the way that it's going to be perceived is that they will remain as the standard and they'll pivot from using paper assets or using paper currency to now us implement a digital currency because the main objective is just figuring out how to police and how to relegate how everything is done. It's not so much that no one else can be superior, no one else can have a higher value. It's just about figuring out how to relegate and say, hey, listen, like we need to figure out a way that we can police everything that's happening. But
All right, all right. So just before I go to the next person, which will be Perry, I'll put you on chat. But I just want to tackle this very quick. Shout out to you, Peter Investor M. Which is the most important challenge the US dollar faces? Is it a geopolitical hegemony? Oh, man, I love your question, man. To petrodollar, 3 cryptocurrencies, 4 American spending, and 5 inflation. Oh man. Anyway, so look, I'm going to answer your question because it has a lot to do with my answer to this question. But if you guys want to tackle any of that in your answers as well, go ahead. But I think the turn is to you, Perry. Just to remind you what the question was,
Okay.
100% of the currency so far that has been created has failed, except the US dollar. US dollar has been running, and by US dollar, I'm very specific. All right,
Hmm.
I'm very specific. The we have the US dollar since like the 1900s, right?
Right.
But there is different standard of the US dollar. It was Bretton Woods at some point, right? Then it became
Right.
the dollar system. Bretton Woods was backed by gold, but there was a certain percentage of gold. At one point, the US dollar was 100% backed by gold, right? So
Right.
and now it is slowly diluted over time. So the current system that we have, which is the dollar system, started in 1971, still running today. When will that, assuming that 100% of currency fail, will what makes this system currently different that will make it last longer? So going back to you, Semsima, if it changes to a new digital currency, technically that's a new system, all right? So Perry.
So I think a part of it is the way the world has moved in general. So where I do agree with Sim is the posturing is the deal. Is the way the world has moved so much, we've actually become more dependent on each other. So it's almost we're in this place now where for the system to change, you're going to have to, what is the, I guess, byproduct of the dollar not being strong anymore, but also knowing at this point the position of the U.S. is still number one in the world, and it's like a bully situation basically. So you're in this position where even trying to replace that, is it really worth it, right? And if you think also about the way that, and this is where I think cryptocurrency plays into it, decentralization. While decentralization is something that everybody likes, in terms of a government and strength, you'll never, if we truly do get decentralization, we'll never see that type of strength again. Um, these governments were put together very well just by the fact that they've lasted so long. So as we decentralize things and kind of separate it, it's just like this stronghold that's not going to be able to be broken. Or what is the mechanism that's going to be able to do it? And that's what I don't really have a clear cut answer as to how you could knock it off. I mean, at the end of the day, it would go to war. And is that what anybody wants right now? So that's what it comes down to.
Mm. Hey, look, there's a couple of points I agree with you there, and I can't wait to answer. But let me pass it along with Mr. The Intentional Millionaire. And same question goes to you. If 100% of currency fails, what is the one thing that makes the US dollar different that is going to succeed?
Well, when you think about the U.S. dollar, I gotta agree with both Perry and Sim. It's because even though the actual dollar may fail, you got to think about. See, the U.S. system is built around the banking system. In the banking system, the reason why fiat is still so popular is because the FDIC regulate insurance on you put money in an institution is really what funds the American economy, because that's what back credit cards, that's what back mortgages, that's what back, investments, the equity markets. So when you think about it, you don't actually need the dollar, because the replacement to the dollar can be credit cards, your Google Pay, those type of things. So it's still just a temporary replacement of having a physical fiat dollar, but it still serves the purpose of fiat money and fiat currency. So again, going back to what I originally said, the only way I can see the fiat dollar going to zero is you have to tear down all those financial systems that's based around the fiat process. Because just going back to your example about when they pulled gold away from the actual currency, was because that's why the banks came out with a higher level of the FDIC approval, because what it allows it to do, allow individuals to bring their fiat money into their organization so they can continue to fund and charge higher currency, basically higher fiat money on the back end to keep everything going with real estate, with credit cards, equities market, so forth and so on. So I think they really got to have a strategy. If the fiat money goes to zero, that means all that stuff has going to have to be totally revamped to take on whatever that new currency is going to be. And then when you even think about it, that's why some of these markets, it had a standard, but that's why they decided to pull it from gold, because they could use gold as a separate commodity that
Mhm,
was separate from fiat money, because the government then had a lot more control,
mhm.
and they can charge you twice versus once.
Hey, I like where you guys going with this. I like where you guys going with this. All right, so let me give me a second here. I'm going to talk now. Uh, so the same question applies to me, and I guess I'm going to use this question as a way to answer as well. So I wanted to show this right here very quick. Let me see if you guys can see it. Um, Let me see. All right. So I made this. I had prepare a bunch of streams or slides before, and I think that's going to help explain it very well. So, just to give you an ideas, the Bretton Woods system lasted from 1944 to 1971, and I agree with the intentional millionaire then, because and Richard Nixon, he had to basically kill the Bretton Woods system to create the dollar system. Now, something very important happens. And I think this is definitely the one thing that is different with the US dollar that we haven't seen before. Ever since we start using currency, it's the fact that basically a lot of the world's superpowers, we're talking about Europe, we're talking about like Russia or United and Soviet Union at one point, right? China now, right? A lot of them are paired with the US dollar. And why? It's because going back to the petrodollar, they have to be paired with the US dollar so that they can buy exactly the oil, right? And then that Bretton Woods system had the gold tied to it. So for 1 ounce of gold, you had 35 US dollar, and that was consistent. Gold price never increased for years. And then all of a sudden, as soon as we killed Bretton Woods, gold price adjusted. All right, gold price adjusted to reflect the inflationary aspect of the US dollar. And this is what the US dollar was created. So it started in 1971. We removed the tie of gold. We can print a lot more. Like you said, Tim, we have more control over it. But I think this is exactly what is the doom, right? The doom of the US dollar is by removing the aspect of the gold. Now, if you go back and study previous empires, you will notice there is a certain pattern. All right. And some of you mentioned wars. We're going to have to go to war. I agree with that. But here's the pattern of many different empires. First, they start their empire with some type of gold back currency. Either it's gold, either it's silver, either it's both of them. Second, they start creating, expanding, right? Then at some point they realize, well, we need more, so they devalue the goal a little bit, and they actually as they're expanding, they want to acquire more, they want to acquire more power. And once they start going to war, they realize, well, we need more currency to fund our army, to fund the military complex. Then they try to remove the tie they have with precious metal so that they can create more currency. They dilute it a little bit. That's what started prior to the World War One. And then after World War One, starting World War Two, that happened again, right? And then after World War II, we're talking about Vietnam, right? And that lines up exactly with the end of the Bretton Woods system. Then once they completely remove ties to the US dollar, they print themselves to oblivion. And actually, when we were studying this, the slide I showed you earlier, this is stage 5. There is 7 stage for an empire. Stage 5 is completely replacing money with currency to fund war. All right. Stage 6 is people are starting to lose their trust. All right. They're starting to lose trust with the currency. And then stage 7 is completely the end of one currency and then moving towards another currency to maintain the balance in economy and all that. Right. So this is all empires have gone through this. And whenever we switch from one to the other currency, the empire dies as well. Now, going back to this question here, there is nothing about the US dollar that makes it different from other currencies, despite its empire, despite and I agree with you there because a lot of you mentioned that the U.S. dollar is just too strong. There's too many countries that depends on it right now to maintain the world currency. That is, I agree with that point, but I don't think it's strong enough for other currencies to rally with each other and say, hey, we're losing confidence in the US dollar. They have all the levers. They can print as much as they want, and then we don't get any of that. But they can have as much as they want, and then they buy our assets for it. Now, keep in mind, China is the manufacturer of the world, right? They hold the true value. They hold what we want. If I want this shirt, it's made in China, and I want it. I have US dollar in my hand. China has my shirt, right? So they're going to ask for US dollar, and they're going to give me my shirt. But at any time, they might say, I don't want you to use US dollar anymore. Maybe it's Bitcoin. Maybe it's another currency. I saw a comment in the chat says the world is not rushing towards yuan, and that's a fact. Because just like you mentioned, I believe it was Perry or you, Tim, mentioned that there's too much debt associated with the yuan. Absolutely true, but it doesn't have to be a yuan. It could be any other currency that China wants to use to maintain the stability and the trust of other companies. So what is the most important challenge to the US dollars? Is it geopolitical hegemony? Is it the petrodollar, cryptocurrencies, American spending, and inflation? It's all of that. It's all of that, Peter Investor M, especially American spending. Look what happened then when we're in lockdown, right? We had boats and boats of oil, boats of products waited. The currency wasn't circulating. There was low velocity of the currency. Guess what happened, right? We were printing more and spending less, creating more and more currency in circulation with lower demand, right? This is just a glimpse of what's going to happen. Eventually, we're going to have a lot more demands of stuff we need to buy. And other countries like China, who holds what we truly want, they will decide to use a different currency. And now we have partnership forming between countries other than the US. And I can show you that later as we move forward. But I think right now, despite everything's going on with the US dollar, there is nothing that makes it extremely special enough that it will not suffer the same fate as all the other empires that went before US, right? Every empire has many currencies. All of them failed, and they had to transition to another system. Whether it was war, whether it was made peacefully, that the world always find a way to make it happen, because wherever there is value, there is interest, and there is people willing to work things out, right? So this is my interest to it. Before we move to the next question, does any of you have anything you want to answer or tackle from what I have to mention?
I do have something I want to add real quick. Really, the way that I look at it is, let's think about Bitcoin, right? Bitcoin, you see, it's the trust is the thing. So, of course, Bitcoin was the first cryptocurrency, but there's no one that can tell me that Bitcoin is really better than Ethereum. There's just no way, just from the use and what you can do with it. But it's the belief, because it was first, and the trust that has it at the forefront. So now that doesn't mean Bitcoin won't be the largest cap coin one day. But the reason is because, we'll say, Ethereum or the uses are going to take the place unless Bitcoin is able to, unless they decide to start doing the same level of work with transactions and things like that. So I'm just making that comparison with Bitcoin because people think it's the best because it was the first one, but when you really look into it, it's not better in terms of what you can use it for. So the thing is with Ethereum being something that we can prove will probably overtake it because of all its uses, what is fundamentally going to be able to take the dollar down is the thing. Because unlike a lot of people who believe the dollar just won't be, that currency anymore, we naturally always look to something new. And what is that going to be? And a lot of people think it is cryptocurrency, but I mean, as much time as I spend in this space, I haven't seen it yet. I haven't seen, the so-called one. And I don't believe Bitcoin's it. I mean, as a reserve maybe, but, I just don't think there's enough of it. So that's just my thought is it's hard for me to wrap my head around what will actually cause that shift or what the better solution is.
Does anyone else have something to mention before I move to the next question?
Yeah. So one thing I realized you haven't mentioned, and around the time the gold standard, and correct me if I'm wrong, around the same time that the gold standard was relinquished, didn't we have a situation where consumer spending through the credit system was significantly increased, where the confidence was focused towards people establishing credit and people using credit cards as an alternative to actually having cash? And that's part of the engine that really pushes the spending as far as how people move money from a consumer level. Because prior to that, if I remember correctly, it was only businesses that were extended credit. But once the gold standard was let go, then people started using credit cards, and people started they started out with charge cards, and then it went from charge cards to actual credit cards. And that was also the other part of our economic system that I think that we're not really mentioning here, because that's a big part of where our spending comes from. It comes from the swiping the credit card and using that fractional lending in order for you to get access to those funds.
Absolutely. Any other points? Maybe Tim, you want to mention before we move on?
No, I think they covered it all.
Yes, I think they did a great job. First of all, to tackle Sim very well. For what did happen though, we removed the tie to gold first, then the credit started exploding. Right, that wouldn't be possible if we had gold. One thing to keep in mind. Now, the other thing I wanted to mention: why did Nixon had to remove the ties from gold? Why? And that's a very key to understand the problem we have with the US dollar. The reason why Nixon had to do it, right? I think if you do research on it, if we lasted maybe 6 hours and that wasn't done, we were risking another war, right? So not like the World War III could have happened if Nixon didn't do this move. Okay. The reason why this didn't happen is um, about 9 years prior to 1971, there was a president of France, Charles de Gaulle. He realized it's like, man, the US is just too powerful. They have money, they have everything to fund wars and wars, just too powerful. What, and he suspected that maybe they were printing a lot more US dollar than they had gold in their Federal Reserve. That's what he was. So you can actually listen to his own speech where he's calling the bluff out. And then we're talking about like 60 years ago, right? Then he started giving back the US what they had in the bank, because they had US dollars in the bank, in exchange for gold, right? Once they started doing that, other countries started follow, but it took 9 years until we started depleting the gold reserve, the gold in the Federal Reserve, and then to a point where the demand of the request for gold was so much that we're going to deplete the entire stash we had, I mean, the US had, and then we were going to expose the lie, which means there is still 12 times more US dollar in circulation than there was gold in the Federal Reserve. So to protect the lie, he cut the tie to gold. He said that it was a temporary measure to break the back of inflation, right? Because people started realizing what was going on. So they're like, well, if that's the case, gold cannot be 35 US dollar anymore. The gold price has to go higher, right? And then to break the back of inflation, the price of everything else was rising. Nixon did this temporary move. It was supposed to be 3 months, then another year. Then now it lasted 50 years and we're still having the same thing. And going back to your point, Perry, it all goes back to trust. If the world had lost their trust on the US dollar at that moment, that would have been severe for the world's stability, because it would trigger another world war with the US, right? And then because we're like, hey, you scammed us from this currency, you didn't have any gold, where is our
Right.
gold, right? And that's where Bitcoin is valuable, despite all the value that is being created, like the metaverse on Ethereum. The company that is responsible, the foundation that is responsible for Ethereum, can still decide to print more, right? There is not necessarily a limit on how much Ethereum can be printed, right? Ether can be
Right.
printed. Whereas Bitcoin, for example, no one controls it. There is a set amount of 21 million that will ever be printed. And because this entity of no one controls it, that establishes a trust. I don't have to trust on a human being. I don't have to trust on a country. I can trust the system, right? Which hasn't been hacked in so many years. Does that mean it will never be hacked? Who knows, right? With quantum computer, you never know. But
Right.
so far, it has proven its way, and that's why countries like El Salvador and other countries in Latin America feels confident enough to move and accept Bitcoin as a currency as opposed to their own inflationary currency, right? Because so that it's for the level of trust. So trust is fundamental for the stability of an economy. And the minute we lose that, uh, we're at risk of war. And Nixon experienced that very well. And we'll talk a little bit more about how that happened, because I have more questions for you. But I'm going to move to another questions. And before I do that, I wanted to give the chat some credits here, because I see you guys in the chats are very involved. Thank you very much. Hope you're enjoying the show so far. I have more questions and more points to bring along, but hey, I see many of you. Make sure you hit the like button, guys. And I see a lot of comments. I don't think I can tackle or I can go with all your comments, because I have to get those topic moving. But Ephraim Corner, thank you for your comments. I really appreciate it. The US dollar is not going anywhere. Check your facts. Well, hey, no worries. What I have is facts. I can share with you later if you want. Let me see other comments. The Russian troll network. I agree with you, but for some reason, the reason dollar index is still trending up. I don't understand it. Hey, man, it's all about manipulation, right? You can always, if you can control when you want to print it and what you do with the interest rate, right? It's all manipulation, and that's the other thing. That's where the more US have to manipulate it to keep running, to keep the show running, the less trust other countries have on it. and that's the whole checkmate situation that's leading the U.S. to a situation where the world will have to get rid of it. And I'm going to prove you. I'm going to prove you that has been going on for the last 20 years on the back end, right? Ephraim Corner, despite inflation, every other country economy in the world still converts the currency against the dollar. I'm assuming you're saying the US dollar. And people have been posturing about the dollar dying for 100 years, and it hasn't happened. Hey, I don't know about 100 years, but definitely I would say the last 10 years, I have records of people saying the US dollar would die. But I believe it will happen before 2030. All right. So that's my stand on it. America has too much debt to be considered wealthy, in my opinion as well. But it's not just that they have something that the world wants. All right, they have something that the world wants, and they're still there. They're still there, but they're barely fighting for that superpower position. But China is coming for them for their next. All right, so let me see if I can salute to you before the billion. Shout out to you. We were hoping to have JT pocket watching with JT on this debate too. It's kind of like to have a fair debate, but we'll see. We'll see. I'm still talking trash, but I think the chat is agreeing a lot with you guys. So you guys actually might win this debate based on the chat, and but I'm very happy you guys are very are interacting with guys. So if the US dollar is backed by the government and gov, it is made by its citizen. If the citizen lack faith of the government, therefore, what will happen to the value of the US dollar? Man, great question. Man, I love your questions, Peter Han, because it's almost like you know exactly the answer to your question. And it all goes back to trust, right? Before a country starts trusting it, the citizen might decide not to trust it. And we can see it clearly already that citizens, they don't trust the US dollar. When they have it, they already want to exchange it for stocks, they want to exchange it for cryptocurrencies, or they want to spend it on liabilities, right? They want to get rid of it. And these are clear signs of the lack of trust, and all of these actions has happened before, prior to a currency crashing. All right, and then the latest example I can think of is the mark currency from the German people. Very similar situation, right? Back in the days, Germany was up there on the superpower of the world, and then they had the mark as a currency, and then the same thing again. We printed like we printed to oblivion, and again they lost their superpower. That was right in the middle of a war that created the rise of the guy. I don't even know if I can say his word, but that guy from German with this short mustache. Well, it was all this situation that helped create a guy like that, right? So it makes you wonder what he has to go through when he was younger that made him having such a radical view of the world. All right, so I can't really go through all the questions, guys, but thank you very much. At some point I'm going to ask you who is winning this debate so far, but thank you very much. I see a lot of comment here, but we gotta keep it moving. And my next question to you guys is, the U.S. has been the world currency for the last 50 years. What is your position on that? What is your opinion? Would the U.S. continue to be the world currency? I know, Perry, you mentioned that in your lifetime you don't see it going. But if you had to give a timeline, when do you think the U.S. dollar will stop being the world currency? And I guess I'll start with Simsia. We'll go from you there. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah. So to answer your question, I think we have to really look at the heart of innovation, right? So the one thing that sets America apart from some of the other nations is the innovation in the production that happens in America, right? As well, let's say the intellectual innovation, right? Now, the actual manufacturing for a long time has been happening in China. You know, I'm old enough to remember way back in the early '90s when I used to see labels that would say "Made in Taiwan." I don't know if everyone remembers this, but I remember seeing labels that say "Made in Taiwan." It's been a long time since I've seen labels that say "Made in Taiwan," right? But I say all that to say that as long as the companies that are leading the charge as far as innovating and being world leaders, as far as uh, having the highest valuation, America will remain as the standard. Now, can you imagine your country is responsible for creating some of the biggest companies in the world, but you're using another currency to actually do business in that one specific country? I mean, I don't see how it would really make sense, in my opinion. But maybe some of the other guys can speak to it. But to me, it just doesn't make sense. And you look at companies like Apple, Tesla, and a lot of that innovation started here in America. And it maybe expands into other areas.
Going back to what I was mentioning earlier, there is one thing that keeps US ahead for now. I definitely think innovation has a lot to play with that. All right, because other than that, we used to be the manufacturer of the world. Anyway, I don't want to take over. I'll save that later. All right, but Perry, you're up next. But I wanted to give a shout out to Melissa just before you start, saying that, hey, great debate, all intelligent, man. It's a good look. Thank you very much, Melissa. And I agree. These are the type of debates we need to have. Friendly debates. We can exchange value, and everyone can learn from what we have to say. All right. So, how about you, Perry? If you had to give a timeline, right? How do you see? In your opinion, can the US dollar still be the world currency, or what's your timeline on that?
Yeah, I believe it can be, and I believe, honestly, I mean, it's hard to just call it, but another couple hundred years. I mean, the reason also is, to me, it's also the marketing, right? That's the thing too. Is if you think about America, and I've been telling people this for years now. So when I went to Paris, right, and went to Rome, I told people, in America, America's the greatest country on earth. People believe that. It's been put into them, and so it's also the destination where tons of people most want to come because of its freedoms and different reasons. So with that marketing, it's like, you wake up in Paris. I didn't feel no different than when I was in America. But it's that mantra that's been pushed in so hard, even the world believes it to a degree. I mean, it has its haters, of course. But because of that, regardless of the government, the belief still is there. And see, that's the thing. While the governments around the world may not trust America, as a whole, it's still got this thought of it being the greatest place. And I think all that ties into it. And I think the easiest way to let everyone explain it real quick, we've all heard the Michael Jordan debates. What people can't detach themselves from is it's not just the court, it's the shoes, it's the legacy, it's everything. There's no way to separate it. So that plays into it as well. And then last but not least, just the bully mentality again. I think it's like earlier from one of those comments, it was like, it's almost like if someone tells Elon Musk, someone on the factory floor at Tesla says, Elon, I don't trust you. He'll say, shut up and go back to work. That's the problem, is like, I just don't, it's just hard for me and I'm American, obviously. So I know any country can go down, but it's just so hard for me to fathom how it does that, because things are so intertangled now. I don't know how you separate yourself from it. So how does China step up and separate themselves? So when China says, hey, we don't want the dollar anymore, we're done with it, it's that next move that the US makes that China's like, okay, we can work this out. We can work this out. So that's kind of the take that I have on it.
Hey, no worries, man. No worries, man. Well, I guess what I can summarize your point is, you mentioned innovation, Cynthia. You mentioned basically culture. The U.S. culture is so strong that we're exporting that as well, and we're kind of like branding other countries with our U.S. culture. And I agree with that. These are all great points. And you mentioned many other points as well that I can't wait to answer to. But before I answer, I gotta give the torch to the intentional millionaire. And the same question goes to you. I remember earlier you mentioned that the US dollar might still be around. It's not something that automatically will be gone from the economy. But if you had to come to give a timeline or your ideas on the world currency, right? The US dollar has been the world currency for the last 50 years. Why would the US continue to be that world currency, in your opinion?
Um, well, you gave me a different question, but I answered.
All right.
The reason being is because I still go back to the fact that what I originally stated, the fact that the U.S. currency is so intermingled and the system is already preset, that I just think that it's going to be too much work to go back and make the changes. Even though we the most innovative, our system still lag when it comes to implementation.
Mhm.
Um,
And we can also answer the question you thought I was asking. Sorry.
right. But also too, I still stick with my 500 plus years before it would be a change. Um, but when you think about just kind of also going over what Perry kind of spoke to, when you think about how everything is intertwined, I just think because you got to also consider the exchange market. And then let's just say if the fiat dollar goes down, I think some of the other countries will come over and back the US because they have a vested interest in the US as well as the US has an interest in them. So I think with that alone, you also got to consider it's kind of that they all interconnected. So I don't think one is going to let the other one kind of go down, and they'll figure out a way to kind of back each other. So
Mm. All right, all right, all right. I hear your points. I hear your points. I guess um, my what I'll ask, I'll answer the question as well. So just to be clear, the answer I'll ask, the question I was asking is I wrote it down here. The US has been the world currency for the last 50 years. Why would the US dollar continue to be the world currency? And basically, if it will be the world currency, how long would it last? I'll be clear on that. The world currency status will disappear in this decade. To be honest with you, I thought it was happening last year when we had the bug situation. I thought that was it. I thought that was going to be it, but somehow it survived. But I think by 2030, this time, I don't think we'll see the US as being the world currency anymore. I think we're still going to see them in museums. We're still going to if you have a stash and then your grandkids, you might keep it as a souvenir. That's what I think will happen. But before it's completely removed of circulation, but within within
You
this
said it's gonna be
decade.
like the $2 bill.
so wealth engineer, you gonna pull the ones out your old sock, huh?
So yeah, and I don't know if I'm triggering the chat. Be nice to me, chat, because I'm going to need the your participation at the end, because it will be you that will decide who win this debate. All right, and then so far I gotta give a shout out to everyone on the panel so far. They're doing a great job. Um, what I wanted to mention, I'm gonna probably cook a little bit for this section here, but I wanted to mention very quickly to you, Simsima and Perry as well, and Tim, is I agree with you. United States are great in innovation. Someone say that, hey, we're underestimating. Um, Probably me, right? I'll take blame for that. I'm not underestimating the American ingenuity, and I actually believe that's probably the only thing that's keeping the Americans alive, and still dominating the world in terms of the currency. Not the only thing, to be honest. One of the major things. All right, their culture, their so much influence, right? So many people depends on that US dollar to make transactions. How they bully the world to do that. It went back on, and I'll share that with you very quickly, guys. It went back on 1971. President Nixon, um, and Henry Kissinger, all right, he's the reason why the US dollar was the world currency and still is the world currency. And what he did, he knew that their destruction of the international gold standard under the Bretton Woods arrangement would have caused a decline in the artificial global demand of the US dollar. Maintaining this artificial dollar demands was vital to the United States were to continue expanding welfare and warfare spending. All right. And what he did, he was instrumental. Henry Kissinger was instrumental in striking a deal with the Saudi royal family, who made a powerful agreement. And what was that powerful agreement? It was basically the use of the petrodollar. So someone was saying that, hey, the IMF was backing the US dollar. Of course, the IMF is playing a part of it, but nothing beats this deal right here, where at the time it was the major oil exporter and this region, and convincing, right? They were funding arms to the Saudis, and the Saudi was established the role. They were and to make sure that every other company, other countries and the surrounding was also using US dollar as a way to exchange oil when the entire world wanted oil, right? Especially in the 1970s. It's not like we had the electric car popular yet, right? So that was definitely then. And that is essential for planes, essential for manufacture, transport, and all that, right? Now, here's something, and this is what I believe the US dollar will die this decade, because it's not something new. Here's what's been happening the last 20 years, guys. The Iraq, right, one of the countries that was exporting oil as well, started doing this. They're dumping the dollar for euro, right? That was in 2020. 2000, right? What happened a year later? 11 months later, we had the 9/11, right? And then a month after that, we started the war on terror, right? We had to defend the pride of America. But what is that trend, right? That trend, which is dumping the dollar for the euro, is going back to that statement right here. What Henry Kissinger knew in 1971, he knew that to maintain the demand for the US dollar, he had to strike a deal, making sure that people use the US dollar as a way to exchange oil. And then these guys started changing the game. A year later, for some reason, a random attack on the government, and then a war started, a 20-year-old war. All right. Then what happened? Another 2008 we had a crash, right? And in that same time, these other countries noticed that, hey, the US is weak. They have to do stimulus 1, stimulus 2, stimulus 3 just to survive and maintain and make sure that the entire world doesn't collapse, because now the entire world is using the US dollar as a unit of measure to compare their own currency. You mentioned that, MCM. I agree. But what if the measuring tool itself is flawed, right? What if the foundation of that measuring tool is being damaged? And that's what started in 2000 with Iraq. And now these guys prior to his death was pushing for this global dinar, but they were more slick about it. In 2010, 2011, you probably heard about Gaddafi, you probably heard about Egypt, you probably heard about the Arab Spring. They started another war trying to destabilize countries, right? And all of a sudden, all those dictators that could make calls like this, right? Without without being democratic, right? They were dictators. They can decide any day to do a move like this, right? So they don't. We have to democratize the entire country, the entire continent, right? We can't have dictators running around making rules like this, and that's what happened. Now, you might believe this or not, but the fact is, Gaddafi, before his death, was pushing for gold dinar and was encouraging countries, especially in the African continent, with using his currencies backed by the gold. And this guy had gold all around the place, gold instead of the US dollars. And that is causing a major issue with the foundation of the US dollars, right? Because The founders of the dollar system knew this very well, right? Now, what is the petro yuan? The petro yuan is a form of official Chinese currency, the yuan intended at least for oil trading. All right. So this is something that's already being implemented for oil trading. So they're removing more and more countries are removing the tie to US dollar to buy oil. And now they're creating a market where you can exchange yuan for oil, right? On March 26, 1918, the Chinese government issued the first long-term oil trading contract, right? These are that future contracts that we depend on that usually were backed by US dollars. Now they're denominating in petro yuan. These are very huge, but the US cannot bully Chinese like they used to with Gaddafi, right? They cannot bully Chinese like they could do with Iraq, right? And what is, and if we're looking at it very carefully, the world top 10 oil exporters, United States is one of them, but you got Saudi Arabia, you got Russia, you got China right up there. You got Iraq. All of these countries are currently doing deals to interact with each other with a different form of currency that is backed by something else other than the US dollars, right? And look at this. That article was from this year. China, Russia expand trade settlement in local currency to counter the US dollar using the same word Peter M was using earlier, hegemony, right? So these are major blows on the foundation of what maintains the US dollar as a world currency. And it's a matter of time. The more, and remember, we have a pressure from the global economy, the global countries out there. We have pressure from them, right, that are slowly changing from they're slowly dropping the US dollars. And then we also have the United States, the Federal Reserve, printing more currency. They're printing a lot more currencies, which means every dollar in existence become less and less valuable. People are slowly losing trust. They want to remove that dollar off their hands. On top of that, the back end of the US dollar is also being hurt. So it's kind of like a checkmate situation that is forcing the US dollar to drop its level on the world currency. And the superpowers, the other superpowers, are already working towards finding that solution, right? China and Russia working together is a major blow. Is a major blow to the US, and it's not a country that the US can bully easily, right? So with that said, that's why I think the US dollar cannot survive as the world currency because of these issues. And if people are not using the US dollar as a world currency, they were going to use something else. Then it's a matter of time before there's just stop using it altogether. And remember, we have all these dollars from other countries that they hold in their Federal Reserve. They're probably going to send it back to the US, say, hey, I don't want your US dollars anymore. Buy like the bonds, for example, and all that. And that all that will create more inflation on our side, which will force us to move to another standard. So that's basically my stand on my question here, how I come up. Oh, no worries. I hope you didn't just drop because the points were too strong or something. Please come back. I won't go too hard. I got booted because I was crushing it. Well, hopefully you'll come back. But yes, these were my point here that I wanted to address. And yes, any points that you wanted to address before we move to the next question?
Man, you said a lot right there. You said a whole lot.
But, did I say anything wrong?
Well, I'll say this, right? So Mr. Perry Unlikely already said it earlier. You know, there are buttons that can be pressed, you know. And so because there are buttons that can be pressed, I don't believe that there can be movements that are made, but at the end at the end of the day, man, you know, it's like you having the biggest guy on your team, you know. You feel like you're on top of the world, you know. And that's how it feels being in America. And I'm not originally
Oh,
from
I know.
America, but it's just I don't think the world can afford to really push America to the side because when we really think about it, if we're being honest, right? Many of America's adversaries are their allies before they become their adversaries. You know, so a lot of the people that America was doing business with before, they become their enemies after America's seeing that maybe the positionality is not really working in their favor. So I see your positions and I understand what you're saying, but I don't know if those countries can really afford to have that. What they say, you don't want that smoke. You know what I mean?
Oh, I know. I see where you're coming from. I'm wondering what that comment is from. No, that is too extreme. What is too extreme in your opinion? Let me know in the chat if you're still here. We ain't signing ish.
I was gonna
Uh,
say we'll just say we the Michael Jordan of currency right now, and until somebody else come up, America's
mm,
the Michael Jordan. So, but I'm not taking no credit from other countries because the thing about other countries, they would experiment with other type of currencies to create their new standard, and they will already have something in place just in case. That's the difference in America compared to other countries. To me, other countries are more likely to go out and and prototype or experiment with different types of currencies, whereas America gonna stick to their true guns until something happen. I think like Sim stated, if they get in a situation where they can't use the fiat currency, then what? Then that's when they'll really look at and consider other alternatives. But until then, they just gonna stick the course.
mm.
That's the
Um,
love and hate relationship I think some people have with the US.
so very quick question, and so we can go quickly on that one. But what would happen when the world moves away from fossil fuels and oil decrease? Like, well, what would you think would happen? Like, would the US dollar still be around? Will the what would happen for the US dollar when that happened? Or do you believe that will ever happen?
Uh, I'll say I do believe it could happen, but then we've got our Elon Musk and we've got people like that that step up and take right over again because of their advancements there. I mean, I'm just using Elon as an example, but he really is ahead of everyone, right? And there's already a war for energy going on already in the background. So I do think it's something else that does. I think it is something else that pops up, but something else I want to add too. Um, Frankly, as a world, though, we're soft. Though, remember, like we're not conquering. The world is. I know we fuss about each other, but to be honest, people have gotten comfortable without war. Now, there's obviously wars going on, but as far as a world war, people kind of like the status quo. Like we might fuss over the dollar and all that, but you know, most people will tell you, nah, they don't really want to go to war. Like when we were really at war across the world. So I think that's part of it too. Is we've just become complacent, and it's like, look, as long as nobody blows nobody up, let's just chill. I think that's part of the attitude as well from the complete global perspective. Now, obviously, we still have wars that we're fighting and things like that, but they are on a smaller scale. It's not like a world war at this point, though.
Yeah,
So,
and I think the wars are so different now. It's not like with missiles anymore. It's cyber, right?
oh yeah,
It could be bio. Hey, it
yeah,
could be bio, right?
yeah,
So
you're right.
hey, look. I'm not trying to start any conspiracy here, but let me look at you in the eyes as I say this, guys. What happened last year, right? In March last year, something happened in the country, right? Affected that country, affected the entire world. The entire world is still suffering. That country is a couple months later is partying in the same location that the outbreak happened. Out without any mask, without any vaccine, and
Yeah, I
it's
mean that's
us here. We're suffering. We have to print so much money. Canadian government printing money, U.S. government printing money, euro, right? Still, well, some could say. right? Some could say that that could be a move. It's not a missile, but it's a, it's a bug.
And
And that bug is more devastating than a missile, guys.
I do want to add this really quickly, because this is very interesting. Just because everyone says it'll be cryptocurrency or digital, right? But here's what's funny, and I've been in it for years, and I can even find myself kind of backsliding, if I will. What is the very thing in cryptocurrency people are trying to trade out of and base it off of? It's the dollar. It's this.
I
It's a
agree.
stable coin. It's that one. It's the dollar. When really, if you believe in crypto, you should be basing your trades off of Bitcoin, something that's continuing to get value.
I
So
agree with
that's
that. And
another.
I think that's probably your strongest point so far, to be honest with you.
That's another. So that's another part of it is that we're still subliminal. I can't even say the word on a subliminal aspect.
Okay.
Let me flip it like that. We're still so tied to the dollar that
I,
it's
I
just
saw I saw
it's
two
crazy.
great point. I want, by the way, great point. We're
Yeah.
going to talk about that in more details. I saw two great point on the chat. I wanted to address. What are your quick thoughts on this? When you see more and more deals like this, shout out to Peter Investor M, like the BRIC, right? Brazil, Russia, India, China. Man, these are four big countries right here. Four big countries in two continents basically that are making alliance, right? And we don't see the US dollars. Now, hey, the way I like to picture US dollars and the USA, it's kind of like, it's kind of like Trump in a way, right? It's kind of like, hey, I want to be this. I'm the big guy, right? We're the Michael Jordan of all that, right? And then we have all these children playing away, and then I'm not invited, and I feel left out. But I have the big guns, right? I'm gonna go out there and bully myself and want to play. I want you to play with me, right? So, what do you guys think of this when other countries are making deals like this and the US is not there? At what point the US is going to bully himself to the party?
No, you go ahead.
Can they?
Well, I mean, this still goes back to what we were saying earlier. I mean, what actually Tim was saying. He was saying that other countries will make attempts to prepare themselves to have an alternative approach, but I still don't really see them as a real threat because I still believe that because of the innovation and ingenuity that happens in America, it's really the fuel that allows people to have confidence in America. Like I'll give you an example, right? So as
Sorry,
some
just to be clear, it's really the fuel, like the petrol, like the oil mean, or
no
what
no
do you
no
mean?
the fuel that's it's the reason why people look to America as like the standard of innovation, right? But I just say that from what I've observed is just with those arguments that you just made, about all the movements that have been made ever since 2000. I I've just I've seen some things, and I don't want to get political, but I've
Go,
just
hey
seen some.
man, go political, man. Whatever you need to get out
Listen,
of the pocket to win.
listen, all the three-letter gangs. I don't want them coming after me. Okay, so
Close the
I've
camera as you
I've
say this.
I've seen enemy of the state. Okay, so I know that I'm not messing with the three-letter gangs.
No worries, man. No worries.
All I can say is I just don't think that they're a real threat. And from what I understand as being someone from Africa, whenever you see America having a presence in the nation, just know that they're not there for philanthropic reasons. They're there for a
Mhm,
specific reason, and
mhm.
that's one thing that I understand. So um, I don't think that they're even really concerned with those guys.
Yeah, no worries, no worries. All right. So, what about you, Tim? Do you have anything you want to add on this?
Nothing I want to add. I think it's Sim just really kind of covered it, and Perry covered that as well. I don't have nothing else to add. Nothing else to add.
Yeah, no worries. All right. So I wanted to go to this comment here. Sorry, guys. Today I really can't go through all the comments, trying to manage the debate, questions, and all that. But thank you very much for being active. I see many great comments that man, I wish I could go tackle one by one, right? But I want to go this one. I respectfully have to disagree. countries already are moving away from the dollar hegemony. Digital currency will rule. SDR is already asking for basket currency, so no more one currency. That is a great point. The baskets of currency, and that's a way kind of like to try to see to help the US save face and still build a level of trust. So this is the reason why he believes. But the digital currency aspect, it's slowly growing aspect, and I know what you're saying when it comes to the unregulated decentralized version of cryptocurrencies. It's not shaping face. But when we have USDC, for example, we have Gemini that are partnering with the SEC, that we were already setting up the points for regulation and cryptocurrency working hand in hands, right? We have XRP trying to settle, Ripple XRP trying to settle. By the way, Ripple, their technology is can replace the SWIFT system. Right now, all these countries, they're operating on SWIFT, wiring money, that US dollar. It's kind of like the plumbing system for the US dollar, right? This is the SWIFT system. If you ever done a wire transfer, you have a SWIFT code, right? These are plumbing system for the final world economy to transfer US dollar to buy oil, right? XRP could basically come and trash all that and use my system here. Ripple, this is how powerful Ripple is. They have a potential to really cause serious impact on the current financial system unless a deal is made, right? And that's what's going on right now. Now, with companies like that, it makes the case where you can have a central digital currency, right, approved by a government, used by a system that governments approve, and that could be the system that the world gravitate towards to. That could be the kind of like the less the smoother way of transitioning to the other platform. What are your thoughts on that, guys? Hello.
So what are our thoughts on America or the world pivoting using XRP in place of the SWIFT system?
Not necessarily XRP, but the fact that other countries are basically asking for a basket of currency, like we and Signing Ish mentioned, instead of just the US dollar. These are clear signs that, they don't trust the US dollar as a whole. And I think they're doing that because they don't have the power yet to completely remove the US, right? So, what are your thoughts on that by aspect alone of that
Yeah.
new system already showing itself?
Yeah, I mean, I think it I think the pivot will happen to allow a system like an XRP to exist, but I don't know if I could say that it would completely eliminate the channels that have been previously established, because it's the relegation that happens through the American government that's really, I'd say, is the real impediment, right? Because they're waiting for the American government to green light some of these things in order for them to be implemented prior to them actually being taken into action. And so I don't know. For me, I look at America as a superpower, a global superpower. And I just think it's difficult for anyone to go against America. And not to say that they've done everything right and they're doing everything right, but it's just difficult for other systems to come in place that go against America's previously established system.
All right, all right. So I'm going to ask the last question, and then we're going to ask the chat to put not yet, right? But I'm going to ask you guys to declare who in this debate. Is it me that was supporting that the US crashed, the US dollar will crash, or is it everyone else on the panel that was supporting that the US dollar will not crash? I'm going to back to this comment right here, as well as this comment as I do my closing statement. But here's think of it as basically the last question for this. So if whatever points you want to mention, we can go for there. I'll start with you, Perry. And here's the last question that I wanted to ask. I wanted to mention many things about the big reset, the world economy, and all that, but we gotta. Some of you have families, and I'm getting hungry, so we gotta call it the day. What is what would need to happen for the US dollar to crash? All right. What would need the US dollar to for happen for the US dollar to crash? And if you believe the US dollar will not crash, then I guess you believe that nothing can happen. But I want to at least give you a scenario to explore that side as well. All right. So what are your thoughts on that, Perry?
So I think that there would have to be a war where the U.S. is essentially defeated. I mean, America has to crash. Like the whole, it has to not be the number one nation anymore. That is one thing that obviously would change things. And beyond that, I think you would have to have China and other large nations get together and be willing to stick together and go through decades of basically almost self-destruction, because it would have to do it to their own demise because of the dependency on. And Sim made a great point. Intellectual property wise and innovation, America is first, but at the same time, as far as a producer, but at the same time, we don't produce that much, yet we spend the most as consumers. So you also have to be willing to take that hit, which would almost destroy any country. So we're so intertangled. I just don't know that you would almost have to destroy yourself and do your own sort of a reset at the same time. So for it to happen, I think the most clear path would be war, and it would be America being defeated in general. Which by the same time, even if they weren't completely defeated, all the resources it would take. I mean, there is a point where that printing, does become where it just does become too much. So that's my thoughts on it.
All right, all right. The Russian troll network. Sorry, I don't know if I missed a question, but if you want to ask your question, put question in cap next to your question, and then I'll try to answer it as much as possible. But then I'm going to ask you the same question, same Sia. Then after we're going to the intentional millionaire, and then after I'll tackle it. But very quickly, Jerry Pan. As long as oil is priced in dollar, I don't see them losing its status. And you're also mentioning that whoever controls the global seas controls world trade, and many people are forgetting that U.S. with their military status. So we were asking earlier, basically, why the world currency is still available, like it's still there. That is the number one reason why. It's because of the military they have right now, right? And that's why I'm saying when you have other countries that are partnering, like Russia and China, they're partnering together. They have economic benefit with each other, between them to see the success of each other's, right? They're combining, they're increasing their military status. China sees and all that, right? Chinese is covering all that. Russia is very aggressive. So yes, we the work is slowly being done there, right? And then we're signing issues also talking about digital currency, like the digital yuan, right? The digital dollar. All of these conversations have already started, and then we're talking about the World Economic Forum have already like pushing. They even have a word for it. They even have a word for it. We're talking about the World Economic Forum. They're saying the big reset, right? Last year, they started promoting the big reset. You will own nothing and you will love it, right? So that's what they're saying, guys. So that's all. They're already telling you how they're going to settle all that, all right? But let me ask you the question again, Cynthia. What is the one thing that would need to happen for the US dollar to lose its status or to crash? What is the one that would need to happen?
So this is just really to second what Perry unlikely said. America would have to lose their position as a global military superpower. When we think about innovation, I think one thing that we're also not mentioning is that the innovation primarily happens to to support the military industrial complex first, and then the consumers are benefiting from these products. I mean, we really have to be honest about that, because that's where the real innovation is happening. It's happening with weapons technology, improving that, and making sure that America maintains their primary position. And then we as little citizens have an opportunity to benefit from the technology. I'd almost say that the technology we have today was established for the military 20, 25, 30 years ago, you know? So that's one thing that we would have to lose that right there. And also, this is my last point. Remember too, America America is making a pivot to now manufacturing coming back into America. You know, you're seeing it with Apple, as Apple's pivoted away from China, and now they're bringing back manufacturing stateside. And then now you're seeing it in the technology sector, where now America wants to gear themselves up from a technology standpoint to have the most talented individuals helping America to restore innovation and production.
All right. So I'm going to ask Tim the same question as well. What would it take? And it seems that some people are in the chat was asking this very quickly. I'm going to address this. What would it take for the US dollar to crash? Basically, I think it was those Russian troll network that had a great comment with this. What if we print $100 trillion a year, right? And also, someone else mentioned, I saw it quickly. Shout out to you for mentioning that. What would happen with the forex market, right? Now, here's an interesting fact. Without the need of the that when we had the Bretton Woods system, we didn't really need a forex market, right? Everything was measured with gold. Gold was that unit of measurement, and 1 pound of gold was the same in the Roman times, and it was the same in 1971, and it's still the same now. Versus the currency, right? 1971, we barely had any in circulation as opposed to now, right? So that currency, that unit of measure is changing, and every time you change it, you have to go back and remeasure everything, the current currencies on the forex and the previous one that were passed out of that factory. So I think the whatever system we're going to have is going to replace the forex system, because once you have one clear unit of measure that doesn't change over time, everything can just be paired with that, and remove the fluctuation that can happen um, between currencies, right? So I wanted to mention that very quickly. But hey, to pass the torch to the intentional millionaire, they thank you for coming here, by the way, to support the panel and with your points, great points, innovation, culture. You guys have mentioned great points, and I agree with many of what you said as well. A war need to happen, and I'm going to address that as well. But how about you, the intentional millionaire? Is there anything like what would need to happen for the U.S. to crash, in your opinion?
The only thing I could see for the U.S. to crash, and I think Sim mentioned it, is it has to, if we get to it may either with Sim or yourself, wealth engineering, is a biological war where everything comes to a halt and the only thing that's left is just the fight. In that case, then yes, I can see things really making a turn to the left. But outside of that, I don't really see that happening. But one of the key things that Sim mentioned as well that I just want to add to is he mentioned a great point about a lot of manufacturing coming back stateside. But also you got to think about the biggest benefit America can gain from that too is less vulnerability to cybersecurity. So when you think about that, if America can get some of this manufacturing piece back and they have a better level of the cyber attacks, then I can continue to see them going a little bit longer being the big dog in the pond. So
Absolutely, great point. To answer that question very quickly, what would need to happen? A war, and then from that war, the U.S. need to lose. Now, here's why I think the U.S. will crash. It's because the war has already started. All right, the war has started since the 2001, and it's still going on. It's just different names, right? It was a war on terror, And now that the war on terror is no longer, it's a war on bios, on gems, on bugs, right? It's a war on bugs. And at the same time, we have cyber attacks left and right happening all the time. So I think this is how the war is transitioning. It's transitioning in an economic war. It's transitioning into a biological war that is seriously affecting the US as a world currency. And how is it affecting it? It's by printing, right? We're going to have to print more and more currencies. Canada is going to have to print, Euro is going to have to print, but out of all of them, the US will definitely triple the amount that the other countries are printing. And if you guys have seen Venezuela, guys, you've seen the southern continents. It's the same thing. The more you print, guys, it's rise the price over. And you mentioned, someone mentioned, I think it was you, Perry, that mentioned it would have to implode, right? It's not you see the US such a power that that it's not. Is it you that mentioned that, Perry?
Right. Yeah.
All right. So you were saying that, yeah, and I agree, man. One thing that US has is the military. All these innovation goes to like Apple, for example. If the FBI wants a back door, well, hey, they're going to ask for that back door, right? So the innovation, it go find its way to the government first before we even have it access. But so the military side is strong, right? But when when other countries are forcing the US to print and more money, they have the goods. We're importing a lot from the China, we're importing a lot from other countries. They have the goods we want. So they can decide to increase the rates, and then we have to pay for it, right? They can decide at some point when we're too weak to change the currency. Could have been a digital currency, a digital one, a digital dollar, right? That could happen. And also while this happened externally, internally, we can have the prices blowing up. We already seen gas prices going up, guys, right? And once gas prices going up, we're going to have anything that has plastic goes up, right? Anything like that has transport that you have to ship your product to will go up because you have to cover your gas prices, right? Anything that derive itself from gas will increase. So the trend of gas increasing in Canada and United States is just the beginning, because you have to increase the price to adjust for the amount of dollars that are being imprinted. And at some point, people are just going to have to be fed up with this. It's the same trend that happened in all the other empires. And big empires like Rome, they implode. Why? Because they print themselves to oblivion. And the parallel between Rome and the US are like mirror image, people. There is, shout out to Mike Maloney. This is where I learn a lot of my concepts when it comes to macroeconomy. He made a series of videos to explain what was going on with the currencies, called Hidden Secrets of Money. All right. In one of these videos, actually in two of these videos, he showed the parallel between Rome and US. And the trend is crystal clear. So I believe the war has already started, right? It has moved as a cyber in the cyber world, as opposed to physical and missile. It also has moved in biological, but all that is seriously affecting and weakening the US dollar, forcing them to print more until they print themselves to oblivion. And I think it's a matter of time before the world demands. At least now they're nice. They're asking, hey, can we have a basket of currency? But that they will demand that we just remove US out of that basket altogether and make it just another currency, right?
I've got one. I've got one thing that you and Weinstein and Ish are forgetting about. The next president is going to balance the budget. They've been talking about that forever. But no, I'm just all jokes aside. Yeah, I mean, I think only time tells. I think only time tells. But I do believe over time, every great nation does come to an end.
Well, hey, that's basically all the question I had ready for you guys. Thank you for your point. Now, the chat. Are you ready? Are you ready, guys? We're going to need your help. So everyone, put the points. I showed some data here. I showed articles. You can go. I don't know if anyone else anyone else have any articles they want to prove. Now it's the time before we close it. But hey, here's how we're going to do this. So we need you guys to find out a winner. If you believe that I won this debate, because there's only two people here, there's only two groups here. It's only me saying that the US dollar will crash, and it's basically Simsia, very unlikely, and the intentional millionaire saying that the US dollar will not crash. Or I guess we can just, for lack of, it's more complex than that, but for simplicity, let's just put it that way. So, we ain't signing is saying that he won. All right. So I would like you guys to put a 1 if you believe that I was able to bring enough argument to validate that US dollar will crash. Put a 1 and put a 2 if you believe the rest of the panel put their points that the US dollar will not crash. So 1 for US dollar will crash, and 2 for US dollar will not crash. Let us know. And if we have, we got already someone saying that you guys won. All right. So far, one. So we'll see. Hit the like button. All right. Make sure you hit the like button as well. Come on. We need more people. We need more people to decide. 1. All right. Oh, there's another 1. Okay. So 3 1s. 1 2.
We appreciate you showing up, Wealth Engineering.
Hey, no worries. But hey, I believe, can you put a 1 or a 2? I believe it's probably a 2 for you, Ephraim Corner, because yeah, there you go, 2. All right, so more people coming in. We have 19 people watching. We need more people to decide. 1, if it's me with saying that the US will crash, and 2, if you believe it's the US dollar will not crash. So far we have 1, 2. Perfect. And more people wants to decide. At least 10 people. If 10 people could make a decision, then I think that's a fair number to decide. But I see a lot of people that support the channel do it.
Yeah,
as we said, they never show it is.
Yeah, they're by it.
If you guys, hey, I did see.
It's a paid program.
It's
a paid program.
Karen is supporting you guys, but hey, I did see on the email, guys, you invited to your channel as well, so to make it fair, right? I did say that, right?
They getting free crypto after the show.
People.
Send us your cash app.
If you go on camera and say it, you're going to have to deliver it, right? So let me do this. Are you sure?
Hey, send us your cash app address.
All right. This guy is talking trashy. But this is bull right here. That's
Wealth Engineering has it set up so that way, with everybody getting into crypto, they're gonna help crash the market.
If you're exchanging your dollars for cryptos, you and very quickly, guys, while we were talking, that was a great point you brought, Perry. People are definitely want to sell the dollars, the cryptos into dollars, but it's only because right now US is still the world currency, right? So if they want to buy something, they have to use what's available. But the minute that it's something else, they have the cryptocurrencies, the pair could be something else, right? It's just a matter of going on an exchange and create a new pair.
But what I specifically mean, though, is, and I don't think people even realize, when I go to, let's just say I go to buy, we'll just keep it simple and say Ethereum, right? I go to buy Ethereum. If you're wanting to make money, I move the US dollar into Ethereum, and let's say I gain 10%, right? People are basing that off of the dollar. But it's the same people who have so much belief in crypto that don't even realize if they were looking at Bitcoin the whole time, it would have made them 20%.
The fundamentals.
So they're focused on the dollar, but Bitcoin, had they have been focused on what Bitcoin was doing. So that's why I'm saying it's just ingrained to them to look at a dollar. You know, everyone looks at a stable coin. You can call it whatever, but as long as it's focused on that dollar, we just got, you know, in our mind, we have that dollar. But you are right. Yeah, I mean, it's just a system in which we've been under for so long that it's pretty much all people know.
Yeah. And that's a great question right here. If the dollar crashes, what happened to stable coins? Well, unfortunately, they crash. If they are pair with the US dollar, then they're backed by the US dollar, right? So whatever happened to the US dollar will happen to the stable coins as well. And this is why, guys, sorry guys, I have to do this with my audience. Sorry guys, you have to excuse me a little bit. I have to do this with my audience. Let me look at you in the eyes as I say this. Guys, this is why I love Luna. Luna has a stable coin called UST. If you want to print more UST, you have to burn Luna. Now, Luna is kind of like Ethereum in a sense that it's an ecosystem that you can create dApps, decentralized application on a blockchain, right? There is a decentralized exchange, TerraSwap, and all that. Now, there is many of them like that. Polkadot, Avalanche, right? Cosmos, Cardano working on Sunday Swap, right? Shout out to you, Perry, for me. I know you love Cardano, but all of them requires a stable coin to exit the market, and that stable coin is paired to the US dollars, except Luna. Now, one UST is equal to $1 US, but it does not mean that one UST is backed by US dollar. One UST is backed by Luna, and to burn more Luna, and the more the demand increase, which means the more they need to print UST, they need to burn Luna. And what is Luna being used for? It's an ecosystem just like Ethereum. You can have the metaverse, you can have your meme coin, you can have. We did a stream on this. You can have a real estate exchange where you tokenize assets like stocks, like Tesla, like Amazon's, or like physical real estate and sell them in tokens, and the asking price is in UST. Man, these are already the foundation of a new form of money backed by something of value away from the US dollars, and it's already in crypto in a decentralized world. All right. So
What
a lot
happens?
of the things that we're talking about are already being implemented, guys. So if should the world decide to choose any other platform as a way to away from the US dollars, they can choose Bitcoin, they can choose Luna and UST, right? They can choose a stable coin until it crashes, but there is many things they can, digital dollar from Digital One, right? CBDCs. There is so many things they can do without having to create a war. So that's the other thing to keep in mind. But I really want you to pay attention to what Luna is doing, because that is a unique thing. And that conversation that we've been having, where you see the value of the US dollar comes from petrol, you remove access to oil, then it's backed by nothing. Well, in cryptocurrencies, it's trust. You mentioned that, Perry. You mentioned that how decentralized is trustless banking. Shout out to you for that. Trustless banking. And that's the power of blockchain, guys. With blockchain, we don't need to rely on human beings anymore. We can rely on a blockchain, and it is trustless because it's coded that way. All right. You can trust it. You don't need to physically trust on me. So that, again, I wanted to pay attention to this, guys. Make sure you check out the stream on how to buy real estate with only $350, because that's where I talk about that, guys. And I showed you the tokenized platform, which I believe is going to change the world. But anyway, any quick points before I declare the winner?
I was just going to say this real quick. What happens when the U.S. says Americans cannot buy Luna? then Luna. No, I think there will be a fight, though. I think there will. I still think, even with crypto, America is even allowing that to happen. And I say that based on look what happens every time China decides. I mean, it basically devastates the market. Now, I do think there'll come a day where that won't happen, but it'll only be when America's so far in bed with it, right? That's part of why it hasn't taken off, right? They haven't got their foothold in enough.
Hey, that's where the Ripple SEC lawsuit is coming from, man. It's going to save the day with that.
Yeah, we'll see. There's a lot going on though. There really is a lot going on right now. We're at a pivotal time right now. Thanks for having us, by the way. Thanks for having us.
Wait, hey, actually, we did have 10 people who voted. All right. So based on the chat, and you guys can always replay this if you want, if you don't believe me. But based on the chat, we have 3 people who voted 2, and then 7 people who voted 1. I realized that a lot of people voted 1. Actually, I would say 3 of them. That's the first time I've seen them on the stream. But and the rest is people supporting your boy JC with them eyes. right. Natasha, you like them eyes, your boy GC. But hey, I was being fair. I gave you guys about more than 12 hours to prepare and ask you to bring your audience as well. So from that say, that's not an excuse. All right. So I won. and but it was honestly, with all being fair, it was great points right there. I many of the things you were saying I agree with, especially when you mentioned about the American stand on innovation. That was great points right here. I believe these are the key reasons why USA is still on the battle when it comes to military as well. Shout out to Jerry Penn on the chat for mentioning that. Absolutely. These are great point of why the US dollar is still operational. But I also think, just like any other empires, it will implode itself as opposed to being attacked from external sources. And China is really not making it easy, whether it's an accident or intended, right? Now, the jury is still out there, but the result is that is causing the USA to really checkmate themselves, because they have to print their US dollar to oblivion, which making any other countries worry and not trusting the government anymore, and that's a problem. They have to solve that. But any last words to you guys before we call it the end?
I think it was a great show. I appreciate you allowing me on the panel. I learned a couple things, just sitting back listening, and we should do this more often, just different topics.
Yeah, no worries. Absolutely. I agree. I like debating anything, and
because I like these panels because it's a different tone, different feel versus everything else that's going on in the YouTube space. So.
Absolutely. Yes. Here I keep it about business only, about wealth engineering, and get those conversations going. But hey, that doesn't mean that I want to go join this other panel to
but we got other panels for that. We want to come over here for a peace of mind and some tranquility and, building up the US dollar. So
yeah, only when I sell my cryptos for now. That was a good point. I like that one. How about you, Perry? Any last words before we close it?
No, yeah, I agree. I mean, just great conversation, and I think it's good. I mean, honestly, I'm still telling you, before YouTube, I mean, there was no brothers to have these conversations with. I mean, so I just appreciate that. It's good for people to see that that brothers do bring some things to the thought-provoking things to the table, rather than just the ratchetness that you see on television. So I just appreciate the conversation, and we definitely need to continue it.
Oh man, and I wish this person was on the panel, man. This guy is coming up with fires, with bullets. Inflation is a corrective measures, and it's not a doomsday scenario. You know what that tells me? That tells me you watch CNBC and you believe everything they say, right? That tells me you watch like the Powell. Right, the Powell. You watch Powell and you believe everything he says. Right now, this is so easy to dismantle as an argument. Just watch any other countries, any other currencies. Germany, look, watch Germany, right, with the mark and how they inflate themselves to oblivion. Watch any countries and like Venezuela, Zimbabwe. Come on, man. Come on. Yeah.
Can I
Sorry,
make a statement real
you have
quick
your
to
hand
that?
raised. Go ahead.
Real quick. For me, when I see inflation, and that's especially when inflation get away from the norm and it goes up, I always take that as opportunity. Because normally when inflation goes up, it's gonna be a moment in time. It's gonna be an opportunity that you can build something. You just gotta be paying attention.
Great point. Adding to that is whenever inflation is going up, if you position your money, your currency, which is losing value over time, you position that into something that gains value over time, right? When the economy reset itself, stabilize itself, right? When inflation and deflation actually works until doomsday happen and then it correct itself, right? Well, when we balance the budget, right? Then what you were holding that was acquiring value will still maintain its purchase power as opposed to currency that will be losing its purchase power. So if you're focusing on building your assets portfolio, and shout out to the intentional millionaire for that. And I think us three, me, myself, Perry, and Simsia, we're on our way. We're on our way to you to get to that $1 million portfolio. I'll actually be flexing as I say that on YouTube. I'm saying it. I have $1 million portfolio. I repeat that myself every day in front of the mirror with my flex. I'm joking.
And
But-
these other two guys up here, they just humble. Don't let it fool you. Wealth engineering.
Yeah.
Well, what's funny is it depends on right now. It depends on where the crypto market's at. Because I'm heavy in crypto, so I bob up and down sometimes. Depending on what I got sitting on the sidelines. So.
You're biased. Oh, thank you very much, Sophia. Sophia said that she subscribed to the entire panel. Thank you very much. Simsia, do you have a YouTube channel too? Talk about that yourself and any last words you have for this conversation before we close it.
Yes, I do. The name of my channel is Simsia, my name here. And like the two other fellas here, my main mission is to share many of the wealth strategies that I've adhered to pretty much throughout my journey here in America, and many of the things that I discovered. And my primary objective is to shorten the learning curve, or to shorten the gap between positioning yourself to move towards wealth building and maybe the process of you figuring out what to do and how to go about doing it. It took me a long time for me to go about really figuring out what strategy I wanted to implement. But I'm really learning from all of you all here, and I appreciate what you all are doing. Thank you for inviting me to the panel. And I'll leave you all with one thing to really consider. Look at all the companies that are the global leaders here in the world, and look at their shareholders, right? Look and see who are the names on that shareholders list, who owns the most in all these respective companies, and you really find out who's really in charge. So that's one thing that I've recently discovered it's been a little bit of a shock, because it's challenged me from the standpoint of, it's like one time there was a time where I was saying them versus us, and when I realized that the products that I'm pushing and that I'm insisting that people invest in are very much the same products that I've said in the past were being used against me, or being used against my people, right? So it's a really conflicting situation that I found myself in, where you find out, hey, these guys own literally everything, and there's no way to get around that. So once you really come to grips with who are the real movers and shakers in this world as a whole, then you're not disappointed by things that don't maybe work out for you in your favor in the forefront, but then you'll see on the back end that things are working in order for you to build your wealth in just vehicles that allow people to propel themselves from like being like middle class to being like the intentional millionaire, having $1 million portfolio. So those are the things that I just employ that you really take a look at. If you're really interested in really understanding everything that's happening, look at any company that you're interested in, Apple, Tesla, Google, whoever it is. Look and see who owns the most shares in those companies, and then you really see who the people that are making moves.
And that's and just by the way, you guys, you can stay on the panel as I close the show. I'll just properly say bye before we leave. But thank you for your time. Thank you for coming on the panel and sharing that, sincere. For me as well, it started when I was 30 years old. I started this journey and figuring out everything, trying to consume as much information as possible. I believe it started at the same age for Perry as well. He shared that on our broadcast we had together. And yes, guys, and this is where information like this are crucial, right? Because especially I honestly believe crypto is the way that us Black people we catch up, right? And then because it's decentralized, but hey, just like you mentioned, people who really control the world, they also try to acquire as much as possible on that front, on that market too, before it gets regularized, right? But at least it gives us a fair chance to really increase and maybe skip a generation or something, if with the profits we can make. Like, so and that's why it's very important to know, and part of that financial journey is to understand the foundation of macroeconomy, of how the US dollars is created, where it's all its power, and basically see history, what happened in history, how did it happen. And as I mentioned, 100% of all the currencies in existence prior to the US dollar has failed, right? This is a fact. This is not something that you can agree or disagree with. This is a fact. So understanding why they fail can help you understand how to operate and understand what's currently happening with the US dollars, and focus yourself on what appreciate in assets, because the currency may change, but the real value, like real estate, for example, will always maintain its value, will just be a different means. Or if it's not oranges, if it's not barter system, it's going to be cow, right? If it's not a cow, it is going a farm, or it's going to be US dollar, right? So or it might be crypto one day, but you still have the real valuable assets, and you can set the terms for yourself. And once we start building that as a community, that's when we can focus and try to build something greater, and maybe one day be a majority owner in a company that can affect the world, right? So it's all steps, but it all starts with financial education. And this is why I really encourage discussion like this on my channel, and I want to push as much as that possible. But with that said, thank you very much, everyone. Thank you very much to the chat. And stay tuned. I have another video coming tomorrow, another stream about franchise businesses. I have someone joining me to talk about that. So with that said, guys, thank you very much, and we'll see you on the next show.
Yeah, JC, bring that fire, mentally taking you higher. Get the cash flow that you desire, building that wealth, I should call you sire. You about to run it, I know it. We steady growing, this is the moment. You gotta subscribe, cause you don't wanna miss it. Wealth engineering, it's time to get it. Wealth engineering, stacking and stacking it up. It's time to generate wealth, till you living like Scrooge McDuck. Hey, wealth engineering, it's time to show you the game. Till you living like Richie Rich, till you ballin' like Bruce Wayne. Hey.